I think the thing that has been the most helpful for me, not only in my career, but personally, is telling the people around you what your goals are and what your interests are and what you hope to achieve in life. And I mean your friends, your family.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Audit Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Russell. Today on the show, we have Val Zappia. Val is the Internal Audit Data Analytics Manager for Victoria's Secret. And Val spoke at the Spring Audit Analytics and AI Conference in 2025, and she had a ton of questions from folks. So much so that she didn't have time to get through them all. So we said, we'll just do an episode and we'll answer all these questions that people from the audience had. And a lot of these are probably the most typical questions also that we still hear. And so that's why we wanted to get Val's perspective on it. Some of the topics that we hit on that we still hear most common from folks, the issues that they're having is data availability and quality issues, how to deal with that, how to go about selecting tools. People love talking tools, and so there's a lot of tools questions. What Val's doing to upskill the rest of the team, so the non-DA folks on the team in internal audit, and then how to align the analytics and audit priorities with the priorities of the organization, or aligning those to the strategy of the organization. All right, with that said, here we go. What's in either your internet browsing history, your ChatGPT, your Copilot history, whatever LLM preference you have, like a personal prompt and a professional one that other people can go, oh, that's cool, I should try one of those?
Yeah, I guess professionally, because I just did this, I have Copilot, and I obviously, I never know what to put for my goals for the year. That's always something I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, people ask you, what are your goals for your year? You're like, I have no idea. So when
Yeah.
I initially started my role, I put my job description into Copilot and said, what are, however many goals you need, what are 4 or 5 solid goals for this role? So then this year, because this will be my second year in my role at Victoria's Secret, I put my goals in from last year and I said, hey, these are my goals for last year. What's a good idea to build upon these? So then I kind of went back and forth with Copilot to figure out what my goals were going to be for the year. And I thought it was super helpful.
I like that. Goals are always super tough. I don't know. I
I
mean, and
don't
you have
know.
to get them
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
hmm
So I
And they
like that
always
a
give
ton.
you a number of you need 4 or 5 goals, and sometimes you can only think of 2 or 3. So
Yeah.
that was incredibly helpful. And
All right.
then personally, as I told you before this started, I'm looking for a house, and I am a first-time homeowner. So I don't know what I don't know. So now that I've been at this for a couple of months, I will put the Zillow link I use ChatGPT personally. So I'll put the Zillow link into ChatGPT and say, can you do a market analysis on this house? Do you think it's priced correctly? And what do you think I should bid? And let me
Nice.
tell you, the last house that I bid on, the reason why I didn't get it wasn't because of the price. It was because somebody had waived inspections, and of course, I want the inspections. But I thought it was super helpful, and at least, that time with my bid, I was spot on with the price, and it told me, "Hey, this is what we think would be a good bid." So, super
That's crazy.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
No, it's crazy, and they were these are all comparable houses that have just sold, down the street and all of those things, and, yeah, that stuff I could look up, but, I mean, it took less than a minute for it to give me that
The
information, so it was
Yeah, and the amount
crazy.
of stuff that you have to know, like we were talking about before we hit the record button, in buying a house is
Mhm.
insane. We definitely made
Yeah.
mistakes because stupid us, we had to use Google 10 years ago, 15
Yeah.
years ago, and it was not, as complete, I think, as if we would have used, any kind of LLM to go, like, "Give me a
Right.
checklist, I'm buying a house, what's all the stuff I need
Or
to know
even
and
the
do?"
disclosures. They send you the disclosures over, I put those directly into ChatGPT, and I say, "What questions should I ask from this? And what
Very
should I
nice.
glean from it?" So, it's it's been my buddy on the back end as I go through this process.
Those are solid. I like that. I think that's gonna help somebody,
I
for
hope
sure.
so. Yeah.
Okay. On the analytics front, so like I said in the intro, you spoke at the Audit Analytics and AI conference in the spring. I think you had more questions than anybody else during any given session, and so we took all your questions and kinda picked them out and said, look, we still get asked these questions also all the time. And so that's really what this is about, is addressing the most common questions that we get in audit analytics or in an audit analytics role. So probably no surprise. I'm sure you've gotten data that is either it's tough to get, it's data acquisition's tough, or you get it and it's complete trash. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. I guess I always first of all, I try to be really approachable in my role. I think in what I do, sometimes people are like, "I don't understand what you're doing." So they're very hands off and, they don't wanna give me information. So first of all, I try to be really approachable. I think for me, like, yeah, I can clean up a data set. It's gonna take me hours. Sometimes it's gonna take me days. But sometimes going back to that person and saying, like, can you just walk me through how you actually pull this report? Where does it come from? I've gotten customized reports either created for me or helped them create new reports to organize the data a little bit better to save me time on my end. Whereas, like, they're giving me a report that's a little bit cleaner, like, maybe I'll have to add a column or 2, but I'm not gonna have to do anything crazy. And plus, I think having that auditor brain, I do like to see the process still of, like, this is how they're pulling things, they're pulling it together, completeness and accuracy, all of those things. So I think that has what has helped me the most. I think earlier on in my career, I would just accept the messy crap data that they were giving out to me and just spend hours and days fixing it. So I don't know if it's like I've moved up and I'm a manager now, so I feel a little bit more confident, like pushing back a little bit and being like, "Hey, so like how did you do that?" But I found that super helpful.
I think as a process, and we started doing this really just before even pandemic and work from home, was rather than, hey, we're going to come find you in your office and sit with you and watch you pull it, because that you got to schedule that, and it can be a pain. Just, hey, when you're good, like just record a video, show us how you are pulling this. And then you have the completeness and accuracy, or a part of it, documented. And if you want to take screenshots, pause the video, take a screenshot. And even now with tools like Loom, or I think Teammate does this, where you can record like a video that's a link and send that. Way, way easier. And then you just pause it, or you just drop the link straight in. We do that all the time. Just drop the link straight in. Here's my procedures. Okay. I like that. That's good. All right. What about on tool selection? How do you go about selecting tools? Or because tools is always like the hottest topic on any conference we go to when it comes to AI and analytics. It's always about tools. My guess is, and you can elaborate, the tools that you have are basically whatever you were given.
I was gonna say this is such a hard question for me to ask her because what I want and what I actually get are 2 different things. So, I have my master's in data analytics, and I've taken classes on Tableau. So, like, when I was in school, that was their preferred software, and that's what I was taught, and in one of my previous roles, they had Tableau licenses that were very easy for people to get. That's what we used, and I made my best dashboards in that job in Tableau. Since then, the companies that I've worked for have had Microsoft licenses, and I find that when they have those big Microsoft packages, you know, everything's included. So, like, they don't wanna go out of their way, I get it, and pay extra for you. I think it's $70 a month for only your license, and then you have to pay $15 extra per person, whereas with Microsoft, if you're just using Power BI, everything's included. So, since then, I've had to use Power BI. Have I figured it out? Yes. I've obviously made, like, great dashboards in Power BI, but I think that Power BI is really easy if you know all of the Microsoft products. I mean, I taught myself how to use Power BI by watching YouTube videos. Nobody taught me how to use it. I think with Tableau, it took a little bit more time. Like I said, I took a class on it, and that was super helpful. But Tableau is more customizable, and I think that's why I like it because I love this stuff, and I'm in the weeds. But if you are someone that's kind of doing this on the side, or people tell me that data analytics is their side hustle in internal audit, Power BI is super easy for you to teach yourself. So it's so hard for me to answer this question because if I could go into every job and they could give me Tableau, I would be so happy, but that's not how the world works.
Yeah. I forget the name of it even, but when I was in school, we had something. It was like this tool and Tableau, and those were the two that were competing. And it was like whoever
Yeah,
wins is going to win the market. And so we had the license for the other one. And then within like 2 years, I was like, it was when I was in public accounting. We had that thing, and then all of a sudden it went away, and we had Tableau. And I was like, okay, well, I guess
yeah,
we're using this now. So I think when it comes to tools, what I always try to tell people is regardless of the tool, analytics, you're going to summarize data, you're going to join data,
right.
and you're going to use the various functions within the tool. And so if you can
Mhm,
do those three things, I pivot table, VLOOKUP, and using the internet to figure out the function, you do that in every single tool. And so if you
right.
just whenever I get a new tool, I go, how can I join data? How do I
Mhm,
summarize and put stuff in a pivot table? And then I'll just use the internet to figure out the functions. And that's like it. So it doesn't
right.
really matter. The tool doesn't
Yeah.
really matter, but yeah, for sure, there's certain everybody's comfortable with, their
Everybody
given
has their preferences. I think too, I try to stay relevant in all of them. Like Tableau has a free conference every year. I always attend it, even though I don't use Tableau every day. Google Looker is what people use if they have Google products. You never know when they're going to switch things on you. So you have to be flexible, you have to be agile. So I try to stay updated in all of the tools cuz you're going to learn something. Everybody has some sort of free conference or whatever for you to attend. So I try to keep updated in the whole space.
Hey, everybody, we're going to take a quick break from our guests. And if you need to get analytics or AI actually working in your internal audit department, or if you already have some of it, you feel like you're not really getting exactly what you need out of it, you know there's more, you're not getting that, go to the show notes, look for the Green Skies Analytics link, click it. On the website, there'll be other links that you can click that'll take you directly to a calendar to schedule time. It's literally 3 clicks to get the time scheduled, to get it figured out. All right, back to the show. Nice. Okay.
Mhm.
What about in like other people, maybe they're side hustling, like you said, or you are trying to increase the analytics competency within your team of the non-auditors? That's a
Yes.
classic question. Everybody
Yeah.
gets that. What kind of steps have you taken? What kind of programs have you
Mhm.
implemented to go, hey, you're a 2 data literacy wise. This is how we're going to get you to a 6, 8, 10.
Right. So I guess the approach that I've taken with my team is I am the only data analyst. I always say I am the team. It's just me right now. So I am trying to get my team to the point where they can recognize that I can help them with something. I don't need them to be able to do the analytics or crunch the numbers or anything like that. I just need them to be able to recognize, like, hey, this is an opportunity to develop to help me with the project. So the steps that we have taken is everyone on our team is now required to have a data analytics goal. So circling back to the beginning with, using Copilot, I encouraged them all, hey, try to use a Copilot or a ChatGPT, figure out a data analytics goal that you would be comfortable with for the year. So everybody has that they're supposed to complete in 2025. Ask me again in a year how that goes, but that's a start that we've had. We do have required training hours for everyone as well, everybody on the team. Most of us have certifications, but if somebody doesn't, they are still required. I think everybody has to get 20 CPE a year, and 10 of that has to be some sort of like specialized more knowledge, whether it's like you're getting like IT specific training, data analytics specific training, that sort of a thing. So we've incorporated both of those, and then we use Audit Board. So we actually do have a question in Audit Board now that says, was data analytics considered for this? So I'm trying to hit them at all points and just remind them to think a little bit differently. And I think that's the hardest part is everybody just wants to keep repeating what they did last year. And I'm trying to turn that on its head. I always try to go in team meetings too. And if there's something little that I can like present to them, or I'm always sending them emails. They're probably sick of me sending them emails of different things that I see that I think are really cool, but I try for them to just remember, to reach out.
And I don't even think you said think differently. I was talking to another audit analyst, solo, similar to you, was the only one, super, super good, very, very good at what they do. And I asked him, I was like, what would you, like, if you could have anything in your role, what would it be? And I was, you always expect like, oh, I want this tool or, something, basically tools is what I always expect. And he was like, if every auditor would just take like 2 minutes and think how could we use analytics here? Or even just do this audit differently as opposed to, all right, roll it forward, test it the same, check the box, hey, we're done with this, let's go. He said that was his number one thing on his wish list was that because once you have that and they send the projects to you, and it's not super fun, when the auditors don't communicate to the analyst and say, "Hey, I have this idea. Can you build this thing for me?" And especially if it's like, "This is what we think the ROI is gonna be or the value it's gonna bring." That is typically one of the toughest things that we hear from, regardless if it's a solo analyst or I mean, there's a team of 12 hardcore data scientists on that team, no audit background, and the auditors and the analytics team, they might as well be on different planets. It's like nothing.
And that's the thing, like, so right now, I'm working for a retailer, and I come from financial institutions, so my background is heavy finance. Like, I was a TA for my dad. My dad taught a derivatives class
Yikes.
at the
Okay.
University of Pittsburgh, and I was his TA, and I learned all of that stuff. So I worked for CME Group. So you would think that I would, as an audit analyst at CME Group, be able to recognize that, like, these are the different opportunities that I would be able to help with audit analytics and all of these, like,
Uh-oh.
derivative instruments and things like that. But even in that situation, I still wasn't an expert. Like, I
Yeah.
still needed the people on the team to be like, "Hey, Val, this is a situation where I really think that you would be helpful." So I think that that is kind of number one, you have to get your team to understand that you're not going to be able to read their minds and know exactly what every single person on the team is working on. So
True.
like you said, I totally echo that. I just want people to think a little bit differently for 1 or 2 minutes
Yeah.
of their
Yeah.
job.
So that's what the new
So
process and audit board is gonna be. It's not did you consider
that's
it?
what
Hey,
I'm hoping. That's what
did
I'm
you think
hoping. I
for
just
1 or
need the
2 minutes?
yeah, yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hopefully they look at it beforehand and they're not looking at it after and they're like, "I
Right.
forgot to
Yeah.
reach out to Val." That
We'll talk to
wasn't an
audit board.
option. Yeah.
We'll have to talk to audit board, see if we can get a timer functionality added to audit board. Just say, "Click the timer, 2 minutes,
Yeah.
see if you come
Yeah,
up with
how long
something.
did you
If
do
not,
it?
that's fine."
So,
Excellent. So we just talked about how to get internal audit to work with you, but there's still the rest of the company that has to work with you to some degree. And so how have you gone about getting the buy-in from those outside of internal audit when you have to get data and rely on them for their business expertise?
I guess I'm very fortunate in my role that my boss and his boss, I always joke that they're passing out my business card. They will always give me scenarios where they said, "Oh, Val, I talked to this person and they think that maybe you can do this." They're always throwing different ideas my way. So I'm very fortunate in that. But in other scenarios, or even when I first started this job and I was trying to get my feet wet and, get people around you to trust you, because I think that this role can be a little bit creative in that people don't know what kind of visualizations that you can create in these sorts of jobs. It's not like you have some sort of portfolio that you're submitting for these roles and saying, "I'm very good at like creating these videos and this sort of, all of this stuff." So one thing that I did when I first started was I created some dashboards just using dummy data that I found on the internet. So I went to Google Trends, and in Google Trends, you can see how many times something was Googled. So I put Victoria's Secret into Google Trends to just see over the last 20 years, what did the Google searches on Victoria's Secret look like in every state? And so I kind of made this dashboard to show to not only the people above me, but my team, like, this is an example of something that I can do. So I think that if you can give people tangible examples, they will be more willing to work with you. And I think that ideas will spark in their head. So I've used Google Trends data. I've also used the website Kaggle before to pull data sets and just play around with it and create a dashboard and just show people, not just explain how I can help them essentially.
I looked up Google Trends as you were saying that because, I used it once to scope an audit to see what the time frame. So we're doing this opioid audit, and I wanted to know when opioids really took off as a term and became, like, publicly known because that's where, um, there's, like, intervention from regulators on, opioids. So I want to be like, all right, well, if we look prior to that, it's probably where some fishy stuff might be happening. And so we did that. There was 2 points. I'll ask you this. On April of 2016
Okay.
was when the first spike of people Googling opioids hit.
Okay.
What do you think the event was?
2016. April 2016, you said?
Mhm. And all
I'm
the
trying to
trainings
think
I've
of
done where I
where
used to ask this all the time, only one person ever got it right.
has gotten the event right. See, I think this is hard because this is when I was in college. So I was not watching the news. I was not paying attention to anything that was happening outside of that bubble.
Got it. Uh, the artist, formerly known as Prince, OD'd on opioids, and that's when it, like,
Oh
hit the
my
news. So
gosh, and
that was,
that's
like,
when
the
it hit.
event that woke up
My
the
mom would be
world.
so upset that I did not know the answer to that because she loves Prince.
Tell her the story, and then
I
ask, like,
will,
that
and
we
I'm gonna
just did,
ask her
and
the
then
question.
ask her what
Yeah.
April of 2016 opioids are. And then the other one, I think, was in November of 2017 or October, and that's when, like, the national emergency of, like, "Hey, this is a huge issue, and we're gonna fund
Yeah.
all the regulations and all that kinda stuff around it." So,
Oh, that's
um
so funny. But it's interesting how I got down the rabbit hole of even finding that website because I was doing a presentation on data analytics and visualization basics. So it was for the IIA and I had to go in person in somewhere in Columbus and give them a presentation. And the first thing that I thought was, I do not wanna be boring. I wanna make sure that everybody comes away learning something, so how am I gonna do that? And another thing that I love other than data and visualizations is Taylor Swift. I'm a huge Swiftie. I went to the Eras Tour 3 times. So I was trying to think of what other thing am I an expert in that I can speak to because I like to be able to speak to my data and I obviously couldn't give Victoria's Secret data out. So I made a presentation on data analytics and visualization using data that I pulled from that Kaggle website on every single song that Taylor Swift has ever put out, and there were different metrics on there about they had danceability and how long the song was and all of these different things. So I did this whole analysis. I probably spent way too much time on it, but whenever I was giving the presentation and teaching people about all of the visualizations and things, they were able to connect to it a little bit because you would think at least everybody in the room, like, knew Taylor Swift, who she was, you know? So I think that if you can kind of find that piece of connection to teach people what you're doing in a way where they can at least remember it, I think that I've found that really useful. And so many people have reached out to me about that presentation because I made a LinkedIn post when I was done about like some of my findings just because I thought that it was interesting. I've had so many people reach out to me and say that was really cool, or I remembered how to do this visual because you taught it this way. Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna
So
try to wrap up the Taylor Swift conversation.
yeah.
There
I could
was
probably go on too long. Yeah.
for, I mean, like, years and years and at least 4 years, I feel pretty confident in saying 4 years. When I would go to Google Trends, the
Mhm.
homepage was
It
always this
says
map.
Taylor Swift.
It
Yeah.
was a map of the US, and it was
Mhm.
color coded on which states Googled Taylor Swift
Mhm.
versus which states Googled Beyoncé. Those were the
Yeah.
2. And it was, I think that was who I know it was Taylor Swift, I think it was Beyoncé. For, like, years, that was the
Forever.
homepage.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, the other thing was I used to use this Taylor Swift visualization, and one of the very first, like, trainings that I did, sessions that I did, and it was I got it off of Reddit, but it was a bar graph of it had all of her albums on the x-axis, so the
Uh-huh.
bottom, and then on the y, it put the number of references to drinks, and so
That's
there'd be, like,
hilarious.
bourbon, tequila, champagne, whatever, and you
Mhm.
could see over because what she started when she was, like, 12 or
Yeah, she
something,
was super young, and it just goes
so
up.
you could see over
Yeah.
time, and then she hit, like, 21, it was just like,
Just
Taylor get
skyrocketed.
yeah.
That's hilarious.
Let me bring this around to make it,
Yeah.
to close the loop on this. So,
Mhm.
because this is what I always recommend to people also when it comes to analytics. You did it with Taylor Swift data. That's something
Mhm.
you're interested in. It's a hobby. It's interesting. You see an insight. It clicks for you a little bit more than it would if it was, whatever. I don't know. The growth rate
Like
of trees.
financial data,
Yeah,
all of
yeah, yeah.
that's so boring. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was fantasy football data. There's a
Mhm.
ton of it out there, and
So
so I
much.
I was still like I was a decent analyst, but I had this new tool. Like I'd upgraded to this pretty slick tool, and I had to learn it. And so instead of doing like audit stuff in it, I did like my whole fantasy football draft, pre-draft rankings and stuff using this tool. And then by the time I was done with it, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with this. So I always tell people like pick a topic that you're interested in, a hobby, something like
100%.
that. The same can go for AI and using LLMs. And that's
Mhm.
where you're really just going to have like the most fun and most interest. And then that translates pretty easily to what you do at work.
Exactly.
All right. So I think for sure, those that are listening, especially if they are in like an analyst role, will go, yep, I've heard that question 1,000 times and that one and that one and that one. So hopefully we've helped a lot of folks in answering some of these very, very common questions and kind of your approach to them and a bit of my approach to it also. So thank you a ton for that.
Mhm.
With that said, what else do you want to leave the audience with? We'll let you close out the show.
I think the thing that has been the most helpful for me, not only in my career, but personally, is telling the people around you what your goals are and what your interests are and what you hope to achieve in life. And I mean your friends, your family. And my best example is when I was growing up, I used to tell everybody that my dream job was I wanted to be the CFO of Tory Burch. And that kind of evolved to I wanted to work in the finance department of big brand. And when I went to college, one of the first things that I did was every single person that went to Wake Forest and worked for a brand that I recognized, I sent them a LinkedIn message just to talk to them about their career. And I think at the beginning of my career, like most people, you get overwhelmed, you get sucked into it. And I was working in various financial institution jobs. I liked it, yes, but was that what I was passionate about and what I really loved? No, but I kind of lost sight of that. So I was sitting in my office, and I was working in Chicago at the time. I was working late one night, and I get an email from my mom. And the title of the email is, "If you don't apply to this job, I have your resume and I'm going to submit it for you." And it was my current role at Victoria's Secret. So if I wouldn't have said all of those things out loud, she still remembered what my dream job was when I was 10. And how many 20 years later, she helps me by throwing that in my inbox. Just I don't know how she finds things, but she does. So she found that, and I just find that with other things in life too. It's really nice to have that support of family and friends around you. So,
Hey everyone, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Audit Podcast. Whatever platform you're listening on right now, I'm sure there's a subscribe button somewhere, so please hit the subscribe button there. If you're listening through iTunes or Spotify, feel free to go give us that 5-star rating. It only took me about 16 seconds to give myself a 5-star review, and it really helps to get future guests to come on the show, so we'd really appreciate that. Lastly, be sure to check out the show notes and follow us on all our social media channels on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on TikTok. Also, if interested, please sign up for our weekly newsletter from the Audit Podcast. Thank you all. Have a great one.